Hello to all my fellow glorious Gaians. Thank you for joining me, Amber, on my channel, Guidance Through Gaia, where I do tarot pick-a-card readings. If this is your first time here, welcome. I hope that you find something that resonates with you today. If you are a returning viewer, thank you for giving me another shot to read your energy. If you are interested in a personal reading, then I do offer those services. You can find my contact information in the description box down below. Just send me an email. I'll send you a list of my services. Today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at what your first impression of your future spouse is. Okay, and I say spouse, but some people aren't really interested in getting married, so this could just be like, of your life partner. If you're somebody who's like in a poly relationship, this could be the first impression of your next long-term partner. If you are currently in a connection and you're just kind of curious and you pick a pile, it could indicate if you see an energy that's similar to the person that you're with right now, that this could be the individual that you marry or spend your life with, or else that you'll find somebody who has a similar energy. If you're with somebody and this energy doesn't resonate with them at all, use your best intuition, right? Like, don't make any major life decisions. If you're happy with them, then you are on the right path for the right moment, for the time being. If you're not happy with them, then I would suggest, doing a deeper look into that and figuring out, like, obviously, why are you unhappy? Is it something that can be salvaged? Do you need to make any changes on your part? Or is it, and there's, anyway, I just want to really press upon the importance, like, just using your own judgment. So how we're going to be doing this reading is we have these oracle cards here. These are going to give us the profile of the individual that is your future spouse, your future life partner. Then we are going to be using tarot to look at why you get that first impression of them, and then what your impression of them is later on in the relationship, to see if, like, it's consistent, like maybe you were correct, you picked up on everything. Or if maybe there were things that you thought about them that didn't necessarily match up with who they really were. I feel like there's such a more elegant way to say that. And I'm sorry, I'm feeling the bar right now. And then we'll be using a few different oracle decks just to get messages about the connection, right? Okay, so group number 1 is the amethyst stone. Group number 2 is the quartz. Now, you can't really tell, but it's like a faint pink. So I would say this is rose quartz. It's very, very light. And then here, group number 3, we have the fluorite. So go ahead, take your time, meditate on your pile or piles. Who knows? Maybe you get a mix of 2 or 3. And I'll see you at your reading. Bye. Hello, group number 1. If you chose the amethyst stone, then this reading is about your first impression of your future spouse. So, y'all are going to be my test subjects for how I want to lay this out, okay? All right. So let's lay out all the cards that we have here. This is going to be what we said, the first impression. So we have you are what you think. Card number 20 with a flamingo. We have card number 5 with sadness. We have card number, Roman numerals here, 48 with the underworld. Card number 43 with fifth house and passion. And card number 1 with the warrior. It says, I ask for what I want because I deserve to get what I want. And we've got that card right there. I specifically, this is the card, like these cards that I pulled out beforehand. And I was intending to leave them upright, but I was like, no. We're not doing that, because then people are gonna pick a pile based off their eyes. Okay. Your first impression, group number 1, is, first of all, I think you're very heavily attracted to them. They are like your ideal body type, whether this is somebody who is more athletic, or, thin or dad bod, thick, what have you. I do think that there's going to be a lot of attraction here. And I think you see them as potentially a little confrontational. We've got the you are what you think here and the warrior. I think this person is going to come across as somebody who's blunt, who says what they mean. There isn't a lot of padding around their words. And when you first start to get to know them, you may be a little taken aback by that. You might be used to people being having more pleasantry when they communicate and they're getting to know somebody. And I don't think this person really does that. I think they're very succinct. They're very to the point. I think they do have a strong sense of passion. They could be somebody who is very creative, but they're very vocal about their opinions. And you always know where you're going to stand with this person. At least that's your perspective of them. You might see them as a little bit too confrontational sometimes. You might think that there's somebody who doesn't empathize with people as much as what maybe you're accustomed to. You could, I think, look at this person and imagine that they could soften up a little bit, right? They could be a little bit more tactful. They could be a little bit more tender. But there's also a certain, I think, level of respect that you have for this person. They're definitely going to stir a passion in you. And you see them as somebody who takes charge. You see them as somebody who gets stuff done. And somebody who builds their surroundings, right? Like, they've built themselves up. They really pay attention to their appearance. They have built up their social circle, their friend group. Like, I don't think this is somebody who you imagine keeps people around that they don't genuinely want in their life. They've built their finances up. They've built their career up. This person is, from your perspective, somebody who's very hands-on. They aren't somebody who lets life guide them. This is somebody who takes initiative and sees every aspect of their life as being within their control. Even like letting things go, maybe taking control in that. They know, or at least they seem to know when to pursue something and when to kind of cut it as a loss or accept it for what it is. You see this person as a leader, somebody that other people listen to, and somebody who takes charge of situations. You don't see them as the person who is going to hang back and let the group decide, or be indecisive about things. You see this individual as somebody who is direct, decisive, and up for the challenge. You could see them as persistent as well. Like, we notice that this warrior person here has like a heart in his hand, and he's also got like this club behind his head, right? You know that this person is not going to throw in the towel anytime soon, or at least that's your perspective. They feel like somebody who, when they truly have an interest in somebody, or they're curious about somebody, they're going to pursue that person. And they're willing to compete for attention, right? This is the kind of person that you see as somebody who is going to make themselves center stage, show you why it is that you should choose them, what qualities they have that are superior to the other people around them. You might see this person as, you might have concerns that this person could be a little controlling or jealous. I don't know that you necessarily get that impression of them, but that could be something that's in the back of your mind where it's like there's this confidence about them and this willingness to pursue. You kind of wonder like if that's going to be an issue. I feel like your first impression, you might be torn with this person. I'm getting this energy of like kind of not knowing really what you think of them, because I think that there are behaviors that you may find off-putting or frustrating. But you also may just feel like really drawn to them. There are other qualities that you see of them where you're like, well, maybe I judge them too harshly, or maybe I should get to know them. There is a delicate side, I think, that you see to them. And it might come out in moments of opportunity where they can express more tenderness, even if they're more casual about it, right? If someone ahead of them in line is struggling to pay for their groceries or for their meal, this person might take the initiative and put it on their card, pay for it in cash. And I think that could surprise you, and you might be, you might see them as somebody who is just kind of like, oh, it's no big deal, one of your first impressions, I feel like, is they might be good around children. The children and elderly, I think, are people that you expect they might be softer around, a little bit more gentle around. And the first impression, even though there's a little bit of annoyance there and a little bit of frustration with them, there's also like a sense of inquisitiveness and feeling like maybe you could see yourself creating something with this person. It's interesting that we have kind of like a sun background with this this flamingo, because we've also got the underworld highlighted right here. So I feel like your first impression of them is that they have this persona where maybe they exude power and confidence, but that there might be something darker underneath. And as we mentioned earlier, that could be a concern of if they have any control issues or any jealousy issues. But also I feel like you recognize a lot of people don't end up becoming like this unless they've struggled in life, right? You might notice small details about them that give you the impression that they've had to undergo a lot of pain or a lot of struggle, and that they've really done a transformation. There's this, I'm going to bring it over here. I totally could have paused my video filming, but I didn't, sorry. But with the underworld being next to this fifth house passion card, it reminded me of this plaque that I have. And it says, there is much beauty in the darkness. This person may have somewhat of an unconventional appearance. And I think that one of your impressions is you want to know the story behind that. You might see that there's probably beauty in that. I feel like you might be the type of person, because we're focusing so much on how they're kind of like a go-getter, right? And like, you're in control of your life. Take the bull by the horns. I don't accept defeat. And you might be somebody who sees more of the gray areas, right? Like, sometimes people just heavily struggle. Circumstances aren't as easy to overcome as what this person makes it out to be. And so I feel like one of your impressions is you might think that you see a depth to them that they aren't necessarily trying to share with other people. Whereas, like, if they have a lot of tattoos, some people might just be like, oh, that's really cool, or, oh, I wouldn't have that many tattoos. But you're like, there's probably a story behind all of those. And I'm curious to know what that story is. With this person being kind of hard-headed and maybe confrontational, I think one of your impressions is like, well, what made you this way? What darkness have you had to go through in order to put up this layer of armor? Which is interesting to say, because, this character very clearly isn't armored. They've got their head protected, right? But the rest of their body is exposed. So I think you also, one of your first impressions of this person is like, you don't think they're maybe necessarily the most practical or the most observant. They may have overestimated their strength or their confidence, but you kind of see the weak points in it. Your first impression is that in spite of this optimism that they have, in spite of the strength that they have, that there are some deep wounds underneath. You could be a little concerned that this person might break your heart if you do give them a chance. There's certainly in this energy a feeling of uncertainty, as we already talked about. Feeling intrigued by them, but also feeling kind of put off, like wondering which direction it's going to go. And part of it too could be that this person may remind you of somebody from your past. And so when you're looking at these characteristics, you could be referring to that past person, thinking this is how that person was. Are they going to be the same, right? Overall, your first impression of them is very deep. You're very observant, group number one, and you see the complexities of humanity. And you see how they are on the surface level, or how you think they're presenting themselves. But you also think that you see something deeper, right? And the underworld, it's about difficult challenges. It's about death, decay, but transformation. The underworld isn't really a bad place. It's not a bad place to be. It's not a bad part of a person's life. It can be very dark. It can be scary, and we can have a lot of resistance to it, but it's also a necessity, So let's get some information on why you think this, why you have this first impression. Why does group one have this first impression about their future spouse? We've got the Knave of Cups in reverse. We've got Justice, the World, the Queen of Coins in reverse, and The 5 of Coins. I can talk about either this person expresses a negative emotion or like a difficult emotion. They're trying to seem too steeled, right? They're trying to seem emotionless. And I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. You know, where some people relate emotionally, there's almost like this person is almost like intentionally trying to avoid emotional communication. And I think that sets off something in your mind where you're like, that's different. And I don't know if it's an acceptable difference or if it's an alarm bell difference. You're trying to be fair with this Justice card here. You're really trying to see somebody for every aspect of who they are, right? You may have had experiences where you only saw the positive in people, and that led you into connections where you were blindsided by the negative qualities, or you stayed in situations that were toxic or not beneficial to you, not growing. But I think also, like, when you see the negative qualities of somebody, like, you don't want to completely define them by that, right? You're like, I don't want to just, you know, people are a mixture. I don't want to just focus on, like, the things that I don't like about somebody or the things that are kind of weird about somebody. Like, I want to see the good qualities too. You really try to get a grounded perspective of people. And like I said, I'm going to go back to this with the Knave of Cups in reverse. This could remind you of somebody who did hurt you in the past. Sorry to get off track, but that just kept drawing my attention in. There could be a very similar energy here to somebody that hurt you in the past. But getting back on track. With the World here, you know, first of all, we have all like these fixed signs, right? And that can talk about being stubborn. So this person is showing you that they're stubborn. They're showing you that they're hard-headed. But I think you might also be a little stubborn too. Even though you're trying to be open-minded, there may be qualities of this person that you're only seeing from like a limited understanding. Like, I mean, obviously it's limited. It's your first impression of them, right? But you may be hyper fixating on some traits or some perspectives. And once again, you know, we could be comparing this person to somebody in your past and just being like, so my ex or someone from my past had these similar qualities, and this is, you know, this is how they turned out to be. I don't know if I want to get involved with this person. But once again, like I said, you know, you're trying to have a complete picture. You're trying to be well-rounded. You're trying to see things from an informed perspective. Like you're very precise. You're very intuitive. You're very observant. I'm sure that down the road, because, you know, this is somebody that you're going to be with in a very strong, committed relationship. We're talking about spouses or lifetime partners or something. But, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if you're able to comment about something this person does or do like a psychoanalysis about some of their behaviors, and they come to you and they're like, oh my God, I didn't know that I did that. Or like, you know what, I thought about it and yeah, you're right. Because you're very sharp. Group number 1, you are. And this just kind of looks like a mirror to me, right? So I think you see some similarities in this person to yourself. And so it's kind of like some of these traits, whether it's, the passion or the being hard-headed or the having gone through difficulties or struggling with sadness, it's a mirror to you. Like, you recognize those in yourself. And so you kind of reflect your reasons and your behaviors onto this person as well. I want to get a clarifier for the Queen of Coins in reverse. Oh, okay. Okay, this person I feel like may not be as nurturing as you expect of somebody who pursues you. Like, I feel like maybe they're not laying it on thick, right? Like, they're not schmoozing you. They're not, like, complimenting you completely or, being super affectionate. They might be more practical in their approach. And especially if you're used to people, like, love bombing you, it can be weird to understand the motives of somebody who is approaching a situation a little bit more healthy. Because I think, while I'm sure that this person, like, we all have our issues, right? This person might be a little bit more healthy in the pursuit of relationships. I mean, I do think that they'll chase you. But you might be used to people, like, calling you all the time or texting you or telling you, like, oh my God, how beautiful you are, and trying to make plans right away. Like, talking about getting married and having kids and really romanticizing it, where I feel like this person is, like, not necessarily that romantic. I'm sure they have a romantic side to them, but they're, like, I feel like the way that they approach the pursuit of you is like, group 1, like, you're really interesting. I want to get to know you. Yes, I'm attracted to you. I don't quite know if this is going to be a forever thing, but I want to find out. And so I feel like, because maybe they're not, like, buying you all these gifts or, like, complimenting you all the time or trying to establish, like, you guys getting married within the next 2 weeks or, moving in together, that maybe you're just kind of like, I don't even know how this person really feels about me. I don't know if they're serious or not. And the 5 of Coins. I can talk about feeling alone. I'm trying to figure out how that applies to the situation. I'm getting a few things. The Knave of Swords in reverse. You might go a while without hearing from this person when you first meet them. Or you might try to put some distance between the two of you. And so this person is kind of like, if there is a gap in between the time when you guys are together, like when you first meet them and get to know them a little bit, and then, like, when you start to become more integrated into each other's lives, it might be somebody that you think about from time to time. You might not understand like why they left such an impression on you or why you think about them. Or it could be, you know, you also, even if you guys don't go through a period of time where there's a break, like you're not really necessarily in a circumstance where you get to know them more deeply. So there are situations and there are aspects of them that you're not given access to at first, which makes sense, you know? You can't know something if you don't see it, if you don't read it, if you don't experience it. And once again, you may be struggling with what is a healthy experience in getting to know somebody and what isn't. If you've dealt with partners who, as we've discussed a few times already, have just been really lavish in their attention of you, putting you on a pedestal right away, you might have that expectation that that's what love is, right? And that if things aren't like crazy intense, if someone isn't like giving you all of their attention, then they're not genuinely interested in you. Okay, so interesting. So let's see how this interpretation, like this impression of them, stands up over time and how it changes. Okay, so we've got the Fool in reverse. The Ten of Coins. And the Emperor in reverse. You're very right that this person is stubborn. Okay, they're very hard-headed. They don't have an easy time of seeing different perspectives. They value foundation. You come to realize that. They value foundation. They're not ready to start something new until they know that it's solid. Absolutely. So when they're pursuing you, it's not so much to make something happen, right? It's not like you're going to be my partner. I want to be with you. I want to marry you. It's more like there's something about you that I like, or I find you very attractive. I want to see if there's more. When they're pursuing you, it's like to gather information and to see if there is a foundation that can be built. But they're not just going to jump into anything. So you see that this person can be a little bit authoritarian sometimes. They can be stubborn. And that they take their time. This is a person who is a little bit of a slower energy. This is somebody who does like, what do they call it? Like recon or something? I don't know, when like you see those like action movies and something like going in just to gather information and, you know, get intelligence and then go back to the base. You know, like that's what this person is doing. Like they're going to be they're going to be aggressive and persistent in their pursuit. But they're not going to make any rash decisions. Okay, so let's get another card for like how your perspective changes or is reaffirmed. What I'm getting with the Three of Wands is that they want to expand. And expansion means partnership, right? So if your first impression is they might be controlling because potentially some of their behaviors, you know, are assertive, and they're persistent, but also because they might remind you of someone in the past, you're going to find out that no, they're stubborn, they can be a little bit of authoritarian, but they do want to expand. They see you as a creative equal. The Queen of Wands, the Two of Wands, and the Knave of Coins in reverse. Ooh, group one. At first, even though they're pursuing you and you're like you see them pursuing you, we talked about how there may be times when you are kind of questioning how they value you. You know, if they're really attracted to you, if they really have an interest in you. This person, you're going to realize, is obsessed with you. And that's going to come because of time and experience. Like they're not going to necessarily be obsessed with you in the beginning. They might count it as an obsession because they might be like, you know, if I wasn't like super curious about you and super interested in you, then I wouldn't have even bothered. Like if I just kind of felt like half-assed about things, I wouldn't go for it. But it's like the stronger your guys' bond grows to be, like the more hot and heavy they get for you, right? Like they literally, look how this Knave is like, is in reverse. And it makes me think of so obviously it didn't work out, but one of the things that my ex-boyfriend used to say to me was like, I would bow before you, my queen. Like I would lay my head to rest at your feet. That's my best attempt at an Englishman South African accent. Thank you. This is somebody who sees the power and the authority in you. They have a lot of respect for it. And you're going to realize that even though this person can be stubborn, like your opinion and your perspective holds a lot more weight to this person than most other people's, right? Absolutely. Okay, so let's just get some cards to talk about this relationship of yours, this connection of yours. Ooh, very soon. Clearly decide what you want so that it comes to you now. Okay, so that's confirmation, right? Some of you, this may be more confirmation that, like, if this sounds like your person and what your first impression was of them and how, like, things have kind of stayed the same or changed, this is confirmation, I think, that you are very much connected to the person that you will spend the rest of your life with, or a significant portion of your life, depending on, I mean, and if you're single, this is definitely confirmation that this person is coming in soon. And really think about what it is that you're looking for in somebody. You know, that could help you get closer to meeting this person or becoming the kind of person who would be a good fit with this individual. I think that you know, if you've struggled with unhealthy relationships in the past, overall, it's just really important to start to work through that and understand what our boundaries are and what kind of partner we're looking for and what things we absolutely will not accept. For some of you, being decisive, right? Knowing what it is that you want, knowing what kind of behavior you don't want, could be what encourages this person to come in. I feel like they are attracted to people who know who they are. Not who this person is, but like know themselves, right? Like this is somebody who has a lot of respect for people who know what their limits are and will not tolerate anything less than what they deserve. They want somebody who's confident. They want somebody who stands up for themselves, because potentially this person might even know that like they have a strong personality, and I don't think that they expect another person to kind of hold them accountable, but they might be like, yo, group number one, sometimes I don't know when I'm being a dickhead. All right. And so I know that's probably something I need to work on, but I need a partner who can tell me when I'm being a dick or when I'm being a bitch, instead of like just holding that back, you know? This person is probably somebody who is very self-focused, and so they may not always notice the needs of others around them. And that may be because they're just not in tune with other people, or maybe they are just neurodivergent, right? Like, there are people who are neurodivergent who just don't pick up on subtle cues, right? Like, they need things stated directly to them. And that could be what this person experiences. That could be what this person goes through. Like, hey, I just don't notice cues. I need someone to be blunt with me, because they don't want to make a partner feel inferior or invalidated. But they need somebody who can tell them, like, because I just keep getting this feeling like I don't want to be the reason somebody feels miserable. And I think that's something that they've probably had to experience in past relationships, because they weren't aware of other people's feelings. And the other person didn't communicate with them in ways that they understood. So it's just kind of like a mutual issue. But that's what I just keep hearing. Like, I don't want to be the reason somebody else feels miserable. And so they're like, group number one, I need somebody who's going to tell me when they're upset, when they're unhappy, if I'm doing something wrong, if there's something I could be doing differently, not because I expect other people to hold my hand and walk me into being a good human being, but just because sometimes I don't notice how I'm affecting other people. Wow, that was really strong. So being able to decide what you want and what you are willing to offer and what you want in return and what you are not willing to do and what you are not willing to accept is really going to help bring you into alignment with this person. Okay, sorry, that was kind of a tangent. Let's get another card. What else can you tell us about this relationship? 1111. 1111 is an important number for twin flames, symbolizing harmony and balance in soulmates. You could identify with this person as your twin flame, or as a soulmate, somebody that maybe you were destined to meet, or that you've shared past lives with. It could also just be talking about, like, this is somebody who can be a good balance for you. You might be an individual who, while you want to have certain commonalities with a partner, you really value a partner who has differences from you because it offers balance. Like you want to be able to provide strengths where they have weaknesses, and you want somebody who can provide strengths where you have weaknesses. And seeing 1111 a lot could be an indication, you know, that you're on the right path. For some of you that they might be near, but more importantly, right, that you are taking the appropriate measures to get into alignment to meeting this person. And one final oracle card about this relationship. 77 or 0707. Compromise. Oh my God, yes. So self-awareness, forgiveness, professionalism, empathy, tenacity, and freedom. Whew, let go of what no longer serves you. Stop holding on to grudges. Express your emotions and aim towards a compromise. Where there's a lack of understanding, it's best to just move on. The truth will set you free. So another set of numbers you could be seeing as you are progressing on this journey and indicating that you're on the right path to meeting this person. This could involve having to forgive somebody from the past and maybe forgive yourself for how you participated in the relationship, maybe the ways that you held yourself back. And also forgiveness and compromise and emotional expression is going to be paramount to this relationship. Okay. This person is clearly more action oriented, right? And I feel like you have more emotional depth to you. And so this person, I think, can be somebody who comes in and helps you learn how to take more action, and you can help them learn how to tap more into their emotions. There may be times, especially in the beginning, as you guys are learning to work together, where tempers go off or there are misunderstandings. And it's going to be very important for the health of this relationship to kind of calm those emotions, to talk reasonably and rationally with each other, and to express yourself truly. Do not hold yourself back, group number one. Because if you do, there could be a possibility of like repeating negative cycles that you've experienced in relationships, where maybe if you felt like your voice was squandered, or that you made yourself smaller to make other people feel comfortable. I don't think this person would ever want you to do that. But I think in this situation, it's going to require you to kind of take control of like how you express yourself, right? This is really a union about autonomy and about two people who are in their power coming together to share a lifetime. And that's beautiful, but it can be a challenge, especially if they've both been through difficult cycles, and they're still trying to kind of figure it out, right? So group number one, I hope that this reading resonated. If it did, please let me know how in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to be a part of the family and haven't done so, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you know whenever I upload a new video. If you are interested in a personal reading, I offer those. Just look for my contact information in the description box down below. Send me an email and I'll send you a list of my services. Bye. Hello, group two. If you chose the rose quartz stone, this will be your first impression of your future spouse or future life partner. These cards are going to depict that first impression. Then we'll get into tarot to learn a little bit more about your story, and then use some oracle cards to get a little bit extra information. We're just laying layer upon layer upon layer. So let's get started. We have card number 14 with service. We have card number 22 with have faith. Card number 69 with the vessel. card number 14, again, with debilitated and discomfort. And then we have card number 48 with the mentor, affirmation, I respect and learn from the wisdom of my elders. So this card is one of the reasons why I didn't, because this was originally the first card that I had picked out. And a lot of times when I use this deck, I will use these as the identifying cards and I'll flip them with the image out. But like, look at this. We got a little old lady, right? And I was like, I don't want people to be necessarily picking their pile based upon the image of the person in this instance. But here we are. So your first impression, they could seem older than you, right? They may have like graying hair or whitish hair. They could have, like, if they're a man, they could have like facial hair that makes them appear older than what they are. Maybe they've done a lot of physical labor, right? So, I mean, when we get into like, I guess I don't know necessarily about Gen X, but millennials and stuff, there is historical information to show that like people aren't aging in the same ways that they used to be, largely because of like advances in healthcare. And even though I would say today's society is still very stressful in different ways, in some parts of the world, the stressors are not as intense, right? Like if we're looking at our grandparents and our parent generation, there was, like world wars. Obviously we're still experiencing war. We had the war in Afghanistan and Iraq. We've got like the war against Ukraine going on right now. The war against Palestine. But there are a lot of different factors that show that ages differently. And so today's generations do appear younger than what their parents and like their grandparents' generation did look like. But sometimes things like poverty, extreme physical labor, being out in the sun a lot, a difference in diet, can also kind of escalate our aging. Health conditions. So this person may have had some of those factors in their life where they do appear older than what they are, or it could just be like they seem older than what they are. We've got a lot here about like service and have faith. The vessel, this is somebody that I think you see as very wise, somebody who is very deep, and this is the mentor card, right? Somebody who they're very cerebral. This is somebody I think that you feel is very invested in deep issues. Could be like humanitarian issues, social issues, academic issues. There's a cause or an interest that they have that they are very deeply vested in, and it's like it's such a big part of them that it becomes a part of their identity, right? So this could easily be somebody who is like very into science, and so they're constantly investigating like scientific advancements. They could work in the scientific community. They could talk a lot about how science applies, how their field of interest applies in the real world. This could be somebody who is very interested in like theology. And so they could really talk your ear off about theologies all across the world and how they've evolved and how they affect societies. I feel like your first impression is really that you could learn from them, that they're very knowledgeable. You may think of them as somebody who is religious or somebody that you should have faith in, right? You could meet this person and connect with them because of a personal issue. And it almost seems like divine guidance. Like this person came into your life because you needed help with something. And I think that you see them as somebody who is very willing to help. There's a lot of trust here. And you see them as somebody who is very confident in themselves. Like they know who they are. And they're not afraid to show that. This is somebody you see as very kind. Somebody who is considerate of others. Somebody who even potentially goes out of their way to help others. I think this is somebody who you have the impression may volunteer. They may accommodate people. And it's almost kind of like they live this life of service, right? Like part of their existence, from your perspective, is they're there to guide people and to educate them, to help evolve humanity or to help make life more bearable in the conditions that we're in. It's almost like your first impression of them is they're a catalyst for something. You might notice if they do have a disability or a disadvantage of some sort. Maybe they do have some sort of blindness. Maybe they have a level of deafness. You could notice like if they're in chronic pain. But I think that causes a deeper appreciation for them because you see them as somebody who does have limitations. And limitations by society's standards, right? Like they live in a world that wasn't necessarily designed for them, that doesn't necessarily accommodate them. But they're not afraid to be present in that world. And this could even be somebody who is trying to make advancements to create a more accessible and accommodating society for people who have disabilities, disadvantages, or just differences. I think there's a little bit of, as we talk here, discomfort, because even though there's a sense of awe that you have for them, you may, their knowledge or their perspectives may at times be too overbearing for you or too expansive for you. You may be somebody who is more comfortable learning at a slower pace or taking in smaller bites of information. And this person is just so passionate and they're so seemingly informed and they're so enveloped in what their life purpose is, what they've determined it to be, that I think it's sometimes hard for you to grasp everything all at once. And it potentially, I think, makes you realize maybe some areas where you had a lack of judgment or you have room to grow. You may have come into this connection, meeting this person, feeling like you did know yourself better than what you realize you do, or that or that you aren't as aware of certain facets of life as you thought you had been. Your first impression of this person is that they are very patient, that they're a good communicator, they're eloquent, maybe charismatic, but I don't feel like in the schmoozy way, right? I don't know that this is somebody who would necessarily even be good at like small talk. But they see the deeper issues, at least from your perspective. They see the deeper issues. They see that there are people in the world where we're all just searching for something. We all have fears. We all have hopes. We all have dreams. And they're interested in listening to people, right? Like I just watched a TikTok video of a guy who was down in St. Paul who did like little therapy interviews or whatnot. You know, he set up right outside of I think it was a Wendy's or something, had this little booth, and he just interviewed people and he just listened to them, talk about their life and their struggles and their accomplishments and everything. And so I think you perceive this person as being genuinely invested in the depths of humanity. As a whole, from the bigger picture point of view, but also as, on a smaller scale, on an individual scale. And I think you feel that this person can potentially see the areas where you're insecure, you're struggling, you're lacking. And that might make you uncomfortable because you're like, I just met this person. Like, how do they have such deep insight? This could be somebody who is prominent in your community that you may intentionally seek out. Or just somebody that you know about that you end up running into and meeting off chance. But you see them as somebody who is multi-layered. Somebody who is elevated and interwoven. I just keep hearing like interwoven, right? Like, even if they have like a very specific passion, they can see how it affects other parts of reality or humanity. I feel like your first impression of them is like in awe, but you're also a little spooked by it, right? Because just the depth of knowledge that they have, their insight, their intuition is just something you haven't encountered before. And even if like this person isn't very prominent in your community, this might be just a connection where it's like the first time you've met somebody who really seems to get you, right? Like you've never had somebody understand you quite like this. And it feels very deep, like maybe the two of you have had past lives together or have a mission on this planet together. It's otherworldly, honestly. Trying to think if there's anything else. This just made me think of exposing. Like you see this person as being able to expose truths. And I feel like your first impression of this person is that they're very deep. Like they may have strong Scorpio placements. But overall, this might be somebody where you're surprised because you guys get into like a very deep conversation one of the first times you interact. and you're not used to that. Maybe you're used to more like frivolous, meaningless, generic conversation, and this person starts talking about philosophy, theology, childhood traumas, you know, the meaning of life, our responsibility to humanity, things of that nature. So let's get some cards to explain why you feel this way, like why this, what creates this first impression, why you have this first impression of them. We've got the High Priestess. Literally. The Knave of Wands. Why does group 2 get this, have this first impression? The Empress in reverse. Okay. The Two of Swords in reverse. Do I want one more? Okay, and the Star. We're just gonna take these card by card. The High Priestess. You may have actually had like psychic downloads or like seen this person in your dreams. Or you could have just had a strong feeling that you were going to meet somebody, right? A tarot reader could have told you exactly who this person is. Or like even reflecting on this reading, you meet somebody and you're like, holy crap, like this is them. You could meet them at some kind of like religious event or spiritual event, or some place where they may have a voice in the community. Like, I don't know, you go to like an event on science and they're one of the guest speakers, right? Or you work at a university and there's like a new professor who comes in and, you know, they're the head of the, you know, they take over a theology class or a philosophy class or a sociology class, and you guys get to meet each other and they're just very passionate and informed about this topic. There's also just kind of like this hidden draw that you have to them. And they do seem very knowledgeable. Like this woman is sitting on a throne and she's got this booklet here. So it's kind of like she's the authority figure of this subject. You may go to them for answers, right? The Knave of Wands. They're very active about this. They're very active about whatever their mentorship is. And they ignite a fire in you. They create this passion in you. Or you just respond to this call of passion. I feel like part of it is because they may also really promote this image of themselves. Somebody who does know a lot, somebody who is an expert in their field, somebody who has this knowledge, somebody who has these answers. We've got the Empress in reverse. So this is kind of where we start talking a little bit too about being cautious. You know, my goal here is to bring in positive energy and healthy relationships, but sometimes we do find ourselves in relationships where we may not be the healthiest or we may not have healthy partners. That doesn't necessarily mean this is what it's going to be, but I just feel it's very important because the way this scenario is playing out, it could end up being something very harmonious, very beneficial, very loving, very nurturing. But with how I feel your energy is against their energy, there's a power dynamic here where one person could be taken advantage of. So just keep that in mind. And I bring that up specifically because the Empress in reverse is talking about not having a lot of confidence in ourselves, right? Not feeling in our own power. So you may be, when you meet this person, whether you seek them out or not, you may be vulnerable, or you may not have a high opinion of yourself. You may not feel like you're as powerful or intuitive or knowledgeable. And so you may be drawn to this person because they seem like they have that. And, you know, on one hand, it's wonderful to have a partner. You don't need to feel completely confident in yourself to have a healthy, loving relationship, right? And it can be wonderful to have a partner who is knowledgeable and can teach us and provide support. But we don't want to end up in situations where we're idealizing somebody and diminishing our own value. It puts us at risk for entering into power dynamics where someone can take advantage of us. And I don't want that to happen. I'm not saying that's what is going to happen. I'm just saying part of the reason why you have this perspective of this person is because you don't see the power within yourself. You might be younger, like we talked about, and you just may not have as much confidence. This personality could easily be somebody who's just very excited, very passionate, somebody who is knowledgeable, somebody who has higher understandings. Can also be indicative of people who were like cult leaders or abusers. So just use your discernment, but we'll get some more messages about that. I'm going to claim that isn't what this is, but it's just a warning. Always remember your value. Remember, people are people, even if they seem like super great and super knowledgeable and super powerful. And remember to elevate yourself, support yourself, love yourself, and set up strong boundaries. The Two of Swords in reverse here about why you have this perspective. We got the Two of Cups with the Nine of Coins in reverse. So that, to me, what this is telling me is that because it's kind of a one-sided dialogue, right? I really think that you're going to this person for answers, or you're learning from this person. And you may not be putting a whole lot into the conversation. You may not be contributing knowledge. You may not be contributing experiences. And so there's really no comparison that you can have here. You're probably thinking at this point, like, wow, they're so intelligent, they're so smart. And like, especially when we're talking to somebody who is very well versed in a topic that we don't really know much about, it can be captivating. It's also just important to remember that you have things to offer too. And you may not see that they have deficits in their ability to understand things. I'm sure there are things you know a lot about, or experiences you have had that they don't really know much about. They don't have those experiences. You're going to have strengths where they have weaknesses as well. But right now, it's just like part of the reason why you have this interpretation of them is because they've kind of got the stage. They do. And the star, I mean, we can take that literally. Like, this person might be a star in their own right. They could be a very prominent leader in their field, in their community. You could also just be star-struck, okay? And that happens a lot. Like, when we experience those early feelings of infatuation, we don't see the flaws. We don't see, like, the humbling moments of humanity that somebody has. We just see like the perfect idealizations that either they are performing for us or that we are imagining. So you're starstruck, group number 2. And you don't feel like you have the same experiences. You might be younger than them. You might feel like they're older, they're more knowledgeable, they're more well equipped. And it does feel like maybe there's a feeling of spirituality here, like a feeling of spiritual connection. So let's see how your first impression either continues or how it shifts. And we've got the Hermit in reverse. We've got the Nine of Wands. And we've got the Three of Coins in reverse. I'm going to get some clarifiers for these. The Hermit in reverse. We've got the King of Coins in reverse. The Nine of Wands is by the Ten of Wands. I mean, it's Ten of Swords in reverse. Okay. And the Three of Coins in reverse is the Eight of Swords in reverse. Okay. So I feel like as time goes on, you start to see the deficits that they do have. The areas where they're more ignorant, they don't have as much knowledge, they don't have the foundation. In the very beginning, it seems like you just have a very elevated perspective of this person, and you kind of think that they know everything, right? Or they have all this power, all this influence, and you start to see that's not necessarily the case. There are gaps, and I think that brings a little bit more humanity to this situation. You kind of deviate from putting them on this pedestal into recognizing that they are just a human being. And that in order to gain this knowledge, they had to go through a lot of hard work. You know, it's the years behind them that brought this to them. And it's the hours that they spent studying, or the hours they spent on the field, or all of the different experiences that accumulated into the version of them that you first meet. Because when you first meet them, you might just kind of feel like, wow, like this is just who they are. Like this is just a natural part of their existence. Almost like their ability to have this kind of knowledge and have this kind of experience is inhuman, right? Like it's a gift from the gods. It's because they're super smart. Later on, you start to realize like, no, they had to study a lot, or they had to go out and get these experiences for themselves. They had to do research. They had to practice. They had to talk to people. They had to fail multiple times. And so I think that kind of eventually helps even the playing field for you. Like, I think you still might have a lot of respect for this person as you get to know them. But then you also start to realize, like, they're not some holy entity. That they're human just like you. And like we already talked about, that there are things you excel at that they don't necessarily excel at. And that, you know, if you were to put in the same kind of effort and energy into these fields, or fields that, things that interest you, you know, you could achieve potentially the same level of success and knowledge that they have. Instead of them being like some divine entity or some like logical, like brain powerhouse, you know, you realize like it came from their experiences, and that you can become just as elevated as them with putting in the same effort, you know, talking to people, meeting people, working hard, letting yourself fail, trying again. This Three of Coins and Eight of Swords, both of them in reverse. And Three of Cups in reverse. And when you originally meet them, you might be afraid that you don't have anything to offer, that you don't have anything to contribute, or that they're not going to be interested in working with you. But as you get to know them more and more, I think you realize, like, you don't have to be afraid of that, because you start to see what you can offer. And I think in your own way, like, getting to know them as a person also helps you understand where you want to deviate. Like, maybe originally you were very much drawn to the passions and practices that this person was very passionate about. And I think you start to feel later on a sense of independence. You start to realize, like, you don't necessarily need their advice. You don't necessarily need their cooperation. You don't need whatever it is that they have to offer to succeed. Which isn't to say that, you know, because we're talking about a future, like, spouse or a lifelong partner. So it's not to say that you don't have, like, a collaboration still with this person, or that they don't still offer you support or don't have things to teach you. It's just that you realize you don't need to rely on that. You know, like, they aren't what would make you great. Like, you are great because you are you, and you can veer off into different subjects and topics. And I think, like, they're okay with that. You know, this isn't somebody who needs you to be like their right-hand man, right? Or needs you to focus on the same things that they're focusing on. Like, if you want to be a part of that with them, they're really excited for that. But if you want to pursue your own things, like, they're supportive of that as well. There's a sense of, like, disillusionment that you feel as you get to know them more, but I think it also becomes more empowering, right? Because in your first impression, they have all the power. They're the reason why you can become more, you know, where you can learn more. Wherein later on you realize they're just a human being, like, who's just had a lot more experience and has studied really hard or worked really hard, had a lot of failures to get where they're going. And I think you become more independent as a result of that. Which I personally, that is really healthy for relationships, you know, having a sense of independence and not completely relying on each other. Okay, so we are going to get some cards to talk about this connection, this relationship. Okay, so what information can you give us about this connection, this relationship? Soulmate. Yes, this is your soulmate. Okay, so absolutely, you know, that feeling that you initially have where you feel really drawn to them and you feel like this is a soul connection, that is true. And it could be that at first meeting them, you know, the purpose is really to help you grow and teach you. You know, there is that strong sense of purpose that you're picking up on, but then you're also meant to deviate, right? You're also meant to grow on your own, to pursue your own interests and to develop a sense of independence. Okay. Give us a card to help us better understand this connection. Tell us about this relationship. Tell me now. Why are you being so difficult? Well, that was a lot. Okay, so universe. The universe is guiding you towards that special someone. Just let everything take its course. Okay, so definitely part of the path of meeting this person is universally guided, right? Like if you're out there searching, so I'll say this. In one of my classes, I think it was like a philosophy class, there was the professor posed the question that was like, if God is real, then why do people pray? Like, I mean, and he wasn't taking a stance on it either way. Like, I don't know what his religious faith was, but, you know, the argument was prayer was useless. So it wasn't necessarily like if God was real. It was like if life is predestined, right? Then why do people pray? Because the idea of being like, to pray is kind of useless if life is predestined. And then because I'm a devil's advocate, I was like, well, what if part of a person's destiny was to pray? Like, what if God preordained that? And he was just like, nobody's ever made that argument before. So I can sit here and I can tell you, like, you don't necessarily have to search for this person. You know, the universe is going to guide you to it. But then in my mind, I'm thinking back to that moment, like, well, maybe part of the search, maybe part of the universe guiding you to that person is to search. But absolutely, like, the universe is facilitating this connection. And then it says, link, the bond of love grows stronger over time. Which I think is really reaffirming here, because these are such separate energies, right? Like your first impression, and then, you know, how the impression alters or stays the same. And you find that it does alter a lot. And so when we think of like disillusionment, that can kind of feel like falling out of love, right? Or like if we're accepting people's flaws, oh my God, does that mean we don't love them as much? Or, you know, love is not about blindly idolizing somebody. You know, love is about loving ourselves and loving another person, right? As a human being, and not as an entity, not as a grand entity. I will use that word, a grand being, but as their flawed, limited human self. So it's almost like as the two of you get to know each other more and you start to become more independent and you start to see how this person is just flawed and they're a limited human being and they excel in some ways, but in other ways they may not be so great or they may not be so knowledgeable, and that you don't need them to be great yourself, that's where more love grows, because then you're starting to accept them for who they are and not what you think that they can do for you or what you need from them. And then I didn't even look at this card when I said accept, but accept. Be prepared to accept what fate has in store for you. And, you know, you might feel unworthy at first, when you encounter this person, like, especially with this Empress in reverse card. Just trust you are worthy, right? You're good enough. You have value because you are a human being. I remember one time I went to this class. I can't remember what the topic really was. It was like a spiritual class or whatever. And I remember how I had kind of talked about my insecurity because there was a guy I went on a few dates with that I really liked, but he was so successful in so many ways, and I just didn't feel up to par with him, you know. And I remember the leader of the class was talking about, like, well, sometimes people don't necessarily want somebody who's up to par with them, not because they want somebody who's like lesser than them or less accomplished, but like some people really thrive in relationships where their partner is like competitive and really ambitious, and some people are just like, nah, I don't need that, you know, because they're not like, they're so focused on like their own success and their own ambition that they're really just looking for the partnership, you know. They're not looking to have a competition, or they're not looking to feed off of somebody else's like ambition to fuel their own. Like, they're motivated on their own. And then a guy that I did date for a short while, I remember talking to him and being like, well, you can do all these things. Like, look, you're great at decorating. You have an amazing job. You're a great cook. Like, I don't know what skills I have to offer you. And he was like, Amber, I don't need somebody who has skills. I just need somebody who is going to love me and enjoy life with me, you know? So you may feel like you aren't matching this person's energy, that you're not qualified to be their partner, but at the end of the day, like, I don't think this person is really looking for somebody who like has qualifications. They just want somebody who cares about humanity or cares about things in their own life that they can just enjoy life with, you know? Somebody who will entertain their weird 3 o'clock in the morning ramblings, you know, who won't push for them to always have like small talk, but will go into deeper debates with them. The more that I'm talking about that, the more this person may have struggled growing up because they were always fascinated by like the bigger qualities of life and the deeper meanings of things. And they may just have found it really difficult to relate to people. They may have been seen as like the weird kid, or the person people just didn't interact with a lot because they didn't have much in common with. And so just having a partner that will listen to them, talk, like, you know, go on rambles, and really genuinely like support them in their pursuits of a better understanding and of accomplishments, I think is just going to mean the world to them, you know. But they want you to be you. And then we have 0330, lucky shirt. I don't know if that's supposed to be shift. I don't know. Love, peace, hope, and optimism, transferring responsibility to others, progress, and creativity. Pursue your goals and get what you want. It will provide wonderful benefits for you and the people you hold dear. Your ability to communicate is improving at this time, which will make it easier for you to interact with a broad spectrum of individuals. Absolutely. Pursue your goals. Don't give up. And I think this person, whether you choose to like align yourself with their goals and their values, or you branch out on your own, they're going to support you no matter what. And I think they like learning about different things. Okay, so talking more about yourself, talking more about what you're interested in, is something that they will appreciate because it broadens their perspective and their horizon. And then we've got 1818 with willpower, achievement, success, striving forward, prosperity, go-getters, courage, and luck. Wow, significant events are on the cards for you. You will progress in your endeavors and gain new experiences. The right people and resources will be put on your path. An excellent proposal or change is coming. You're destined for greatness. And so, you know, that could be what initiates this, your pursuit for greatness. But just like this person had to go through a lot of experiences to gain this knowledge, to gain these accolades, whatever it is, you know, this is just one step of the path for you. There's so much more out there to explore. And I would really encourage you to be open to different opportunities. Not necessarily like in love, you know, whatever, but like outside of whatever this person is obsessed with, because I do feel like they're kind of like a mad scientist about something. They're very passionate about something. But give yourself the freedom to explore other avenues, things that necessarily don't connect you with this person. You know, you don't need to be a carbon copy of somebody for them to love you. And not one single person has all of the answers, okay? There are things about you that skills you can build up, okay? Interests you can pursue. And you can achieve that greatness on your own, right? Like this person has a lot to offer you, I think. But they are not a god. They're not some mystical entity. They're not the answer to everything. They're just a human being, right? With a lot of experience behind them, a lot of knowledge, and maybe some brain power, right? Some people, like I had a roommate who was autistic, and like one of the things, and I know not everybody who has autism or is on the spectrum has like something that they really excel at. His was languages, though. Like, he was really good at picking up languages. And just, you know, the syntax and the grammar and all that kind of stuff. And it was one of the things he was passionate about, right? And it's just because his brain worked a little bit differently. And that could be something that this person has, you know, it's just their brain works a little bit differently, but it doesn't mean that they're any better than you or any more capable than you. So group number 2, I'm going to leave your reading here. If this resonated, please let me know how in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to be a part of the family and haven't done so, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you know whenever I upload a new video. If you would like a personal reading, look for my contact information in the description box down below. Send me an email and I'll send you a list of my services. Bye. Hello, my group number 3s. If you chose the fluorite, then this will be your reading about your first impression of your future spouse or life partner. So we're going to take these cards and delve into that right away. We've got Master Manifester. Card number 35, Home, and Master Manifester was card number 10. We've got card number 44, I believe, with the Box. Card number 11 with Aquarius and Collaborate in reverse. And card number 41 with the Improviser. I effortlessly adapt to deal with unexpected circumstances. And here's the image of that. All right, let's get these moved over a little bit. So group number 3, I feel like your first impression of them is a little split. We have Master Manifester and Home, which to me feels like you see them as kind of your dream person, right? The kind of person that you have envisioned, the kind of person that you have prayed for, asked for, that you have dreamt about. Somebody that makes you feel like you belong. Someplace, you know, somebody who can offer you what you've imagined. But I feel like you also see them as somebody who might be a little limited or a little limiting. You know, we've got the Box here, which talks about confinements. It talks about restrictions. And we see how there's all this color outside, right? But inside, it's almost exclusively black and white. And it's like a maze to this this vibrant light. And then Aquarius with collaborator, but in reverse. This could seem like somebody who's very stubborn, somebody who doesn't really want to work with others. And maybe your first impression of them is simply that they have everything that they want, that they aren't particularly interested in a relationship. You know, it could be that you feel that they depict everything that you want, but you don't know if you're the kind of person that they want. I think you see them as somebody who is powerful. They're somebody who's able to kind of like overcome their fears. You know, a lot of people are very afraid of spiders, right? I think you also kind of see that they're able to bring things out that maybe they aren't noticing. You know, we've got this crow here and he's looking straight forward. He doesn't notice the spider, and spiders are about creation. His 3D self doesn't sense the spider, but we've got this eye that's kind of separated. It's like in this sphere with this bird, and so it can see the spider. You might see this as somebody who does have like a sixth sense, or maybe that they're able to call things into being, but they don't realize all the time that they're doing that. You know, they could be somebody who, like we talked about with the box, is just very confined, very limited in their perspectives. And they're talking about like, you know, gosh, like this is the kind of person that I want to be with. And that could be something that describes you. And you're like, literally, I'm standing right in front of you. This is somebody who, you know, could be talking about the goals that they have in life, the dreams that they have in life, and you see how those things are within reach, but this person isn't necessarily recognizing that. There's a core here, right? Where it's just like, you kind of have this impression of like, if they could just get out of their mind, if they could just step outside of this box for a little bit, the power that they would hold or the beauty that they would ignite is something that would be so unique. And there's potential that you see in this person that they don't see in themselves. And ultimately, this is somebody, like, your first impression of them is that you potentially could want to make a home with them. There's something about, you know, maybe it's because of the way you meet, right? Like, you meet through, oh no, that was just my necklace. You meet with friends, or through friends, or you meet, you know, like from a dating app where you guys have had discussions and everything, and there's something that you see that's stable about them. I think that there's a struggle for creativity, though. And maybe that's the balance that you bring in. Maybe you are somebody who has a more creative sense, is more connected to like your outer mind, your higher self. And this person may be just simply more logical, right? Somebody who is too much in like their air energy, not enough in their, you know, there may be too in their air energy and their earth energy, and not enough in like their fire, their water. I think you've seen, you know, home and the box can talk about foundations, and I think you have this impression that they are a very like grounded person, and that they've built stability for themselves, but that they might be a little bit lonely. Even if this person doesn't necessarily say it, I think you can sense a feeling of loneliness in them. And this desire to like actually want to collaborate with people, but they might feel as if they just don't collaborate well with others. They might feel as if they're kind of a social outlier. Maybe their goals are just too different from the people in their lives, or their brain processes things differently. But I think you also see like where they don't necessarily contribute to situations. And sometimes like if we put ourselves in a perspective where we think we're too different, too unique, too weird, not this enough, not that enough, sometimes we can isolate ourselves, and it can make it very difficult for us to interact with people and to find common ground with them. And simply put, like maybe their skills of conversation, of socialization are just a little rusty. If they've been somebody who's been really invested in work and personal hobbies, and they haven't really gone out and socialized, maybe they don't socialize at work, or maybe they have a very limited friend group and they've had those same friends for a long period of time. This could be somebody that just is kind of a little bit rusty in how to communicate with other types of people. But you could see them as they might have like some musical talent, but you could see them as somebody who is adaptable. And maybe that's because of a situation that happens when you guys meet. If you guys are meeting up for a date and like the restaurant you want to eat at is full, they could quickly think of another restaurant. If they find out that you're not interested in a certain topic, they could quickly change what the topic is, find something else that's more interesting. Or they're able to improvise in their own lives. If there's something that happens that makes like their technology unreliable, they might be proficient enough in technology or in a way to do research where they're able to like pinpoint what the problem is. Or they can do something else, right? Like you go over for a date and maybe you guys are supposed to watch something on Netflix, but it turns out Netflix isn't working. And maybe no other shows on other platforms really interest you. And so they do something else. Pull out a board game, or, make you dinner, or, you guys go for a walk, or they're able to think on the spot, which is very Aquarius energy here. Like Aquarians are very good at thinking outside of the box, which is, I say that and it's so funny that we have the box here. But I don't think the box is like their limited perspective in terms of like in what's possible for adapting the situations. It's more about what's possible for their lifetime, right? For their lifestyle. And so I think you kind of see them as a little bit of a conundrum. Somebody who has potential to be like a great partner, or maybe like a great friend, but somebody who may be a little bit standoffish about delving too deeply into that. somebody who is a little bit too strict in their ability to see things, but also somebody who is able to come up with solutions on the spot. And somebody who has right in front of them the things that they've been asking for, but can't really see that. And so now we're going to get into like why you think this. Okay, what causes you to think this? Why do you think this? I've got the Knave of Cups. The King of Cups. Interesting. So there's our water energy. The Six of Swords. The Knave of Wands. And the Three of Coins. We might get some clarifiers for this. But so I feel like there's a conversation that happens between the two of you. And there's a lot of depth that goes into that conversation. This very could easily be like an online connection. I know she's looking at like a little pamphlet. But it could be a connection where you meet online or like in a bar through friends, as I said, and you just get to talking. And the conversation might get a little bit deep. And I feel like the both of you share difficulties from your past or things that you're currently facing. And this could be in like a romantic sense, talking about previous partnerships and how you felt and the struggles that you had and things that other partners did that were painful, or just leaving relationships or relationships ending in general. But this could potentially also just talk about other life circumstances. But then it's also like the conversation veers to how to move on, right? And I feel like this King of Cups might represent this person. And almost like they're giving you advice or they're talking about the ways in which they moved on. And it could be that you didn't ask for this advice. As a Virgo, I'm really good at giving advice people didn't ask for. I'm learning, okay? But it could be also like that's kind of like their way to relate. They're like, yeah, I've been through something like that too. And, I realized when that happens, you just got to do X, Y, Z. And so we go from like this emotional conversation to a conversation of like air, fire, and earth, right? Like mentally overcoming the difficulties, taking action. And now typically, the Three of Coins talks about collaboration. But a lot of times when we look at threes, we can talk about expansion too. Three of Cups would be like emotional expansion. Three of Swords would be like a painful, if upright, like mental expansion. The expansion of pain. The Three of Wands is like a creative expansion. Did I already say 3 wands? No, that was three cups. So what we've got with this. Oh my god. We've got another cups here. We've got the Knight of Cups. What I'm feeling with that is that they're really what's the word for it? Well, it's like trying to make emotions logical, right? And I get the feeling of kind of like sometimes people have to learn how to build themselves into that emotional support system. It may not be something that they know how to do right away. So it's kind of, it's like the two of you are having this exchange. And you're maybe coming at it from a more like emotionally centered space, right? Like you're just talking about feelings. And this person is coming in and talking about feelings, but also like in the context of practicality. And I feel like maybe you're thinking you're a little frustrated with that because it might seem like they've kind of put up a barrier, right? Like they're rationalizing feelings instead of like feeling them. And we've got the Six of Cups. Almost like we got the Ten of Wands. It's almost like they've kind of cut off the circuit, right? To the, sorry, a box fell. They cut off the circuit to their emotions, or at least that's the way it appears. And you might be in a situation where like your emotions are still really fresh. You might see this person like in this conversation just being frustrated because like it seems so easy for them. And right now it's not feeling easy for you. And the Six of Cups with the Ten of Wands talks about like, it could be that having this conversation ends up a little bit stressful, right? Like maybe what they're saying are things that you're not ready to hear at this point, because I do think there could be a validity to some of what they say. You might be picking up on that there is an imbalance, like in them, that maybe they are being too logical. But it could also be that you're feeling an imbalance, right? Like you may not be ready for the logical part of healing. Because both sides have benefits. You know, they are necessary. You know, we need to allow ourselves to feel the emotions, but then it's important to kind of also mentally work through things and start to understand from a logical standpoint, like what we're experiencing, why we're going through it. Being the scales being tipped in any which way is never very healthy for us at some point. This person might be kind of stressing you out. Anything else? the Strength in reverse with the Ten of Cups in reverse under the Knave of Wands. And I think you're also kind of picking up that this person just lets go of things that don't make them happy. They might be doing it too quickly, too preemptively. You know, as you're talking with them, you learn, I think, that they just kind of throw in the towel way too quickly. And you're seeing how, like, they can restrict themselves, right? And kind of wondering, too, like, if they're throwing in the towel that quickly, are they trying to protect themselves from something? You know, do they feel like they could get hurt, or are they just being too picky? You know, what's the deal? What standards does this person have that's so hard to meet? Kind of what I'm hearing. So I think there's a little bit of, like, you see parts of them that you really value in a person and in a connection. You also see areas where they could be too restricted. And I feel like your first impression of them is kind of like, I don't know. I don't know if this is what's going to happen with this. Okay, so let's see how your impression changes or persists over time. How does group 3's perception change? Okay, the Nine of Cups in reverse. The Queen of Cups in reverse. Okay. So, originally you pick up on, like, this perfectionism for them, right? You also pick up on this attitude of, like, they're just very hyper fixated on making sure that they're happy, and it can create a difficulty in trying to get close to them. But over time, you start to see that they aren't happy, right? There was something that you kind of picked up on here with this box, where you realize that this is somebody who is very deeply wounded, and they're not as happy as what they had originally thought that they, well, as they had originally projected. They could, you may end up realizing that they could be mourning a past connection where they were rejected or betrayed, and they just haven't at that point moved on from it. This could also just talk about not feeling comfortable with their own emotions. Because the Queen of Cups upright is somebody who is comfortable with her emotions. She's not afraid to, like, delve deeply. She's not afraid to express herself. She's not afraid to experience the emotions and also let them go. And I feel like, you know, as you get to know this person, you start to realize, like, they're just not comfortable with expressing themselves. They're not comfortable sitting in their own feelings. And for as much as they kind of try to project this laissez-faire, nonchalant attitude, like, this is somebody who is unhappy. Like, they're not content. They want this connection. They want these achievements. And they're not satisfied with the fact that they haven't accrued that. We've got the Three of Swords here in reverse. And I never noticed, wow, look at that. There's a spider right here and a spider right there. Like, just look at that. But that they are trying to heal. This is somebody who who is trying to work through their pain. Even if they're projecting like satisfaction outwardly and like you notice like, oh, they're not really all that happy. They're also not trying to stay in one place emotionally, right? Like they are trying to do the work to heal from the past, but also the perspective that you are correct in is like they're also trying not to get hurt. This is somebody who is just kind of like may close the door preemptively on situations because they're afraid of failure. They're afraid of mockery. They're afraid of letting people down. And so they shut the door on that before they even get a chance to experience what could have happened. We've got the Six of Wands here. But I feel like your perspective is you do see this person as somebody victorious. Somebody who puts in hard work. Somebody who is strong. Because you see them overcome this pain, right? You see the ways in which they take accountability. And it might be that they do that behind closed doors. You know, a lot of times when we're meeting somebody, we put up a front, right? We try to highlight the great things about ourselves and the strengths that we have. We don't want people to see the weaknesses. We don't want people to see our deficits or our pain. And so it's kind of easy to like just brush it off in the initial stages. But as you get closer to this person, you see how hard they actually work on themselves. You see that maybe they just move a little bit more slowly, or their approach to progress is a little bit different from other people's. But that they do put in the work and that they have overcome a lot. Queen of Swords. You do see them as somebody who is a big thinker. And the Ace of Cups. They just might not have as much experience in romance, right? Or that being with you kind of makes them feel like a young buck, or, you know, like I don't know what the female equivalent of that is. You know, if you're not familiar with the phrase, like a young buck, it's talking about like, you know, a deer, a buck, and how they like kind of try to impress the ladies, like strut their stuff or whatever. Seem really cool and independent and all that stuff. But it could be that like you start to notice how they have this sense of refreshing love for you. They do notice the small things. They pay attention to the small details. They're more romantic, I think, than you would have originally thought. I feel like maybe you learn that one of their love languages is like words of affirmation. And they really love telling you, like giving you pet names or telling you how wonderful you are, how much you brighten their day. But I think they also just like to do like, they think of the little gestures that they can extend to you to show you that they love you. And this cup is just overflowing. So even though this person, you know, at first doesn't seem like they're tuned into their emotions, and we see that they struggle with some of those deeper emotions, you know, you do recognize that their cup is overflowing for you. Group number 3. They just might not They might not show it to everybody else, or they might not feel comfortable expressing it at first. Yeah, and you think they're very intelligent, which I think you thought here first anyway. Like you saw an intelligence in them, and this is just like reaffirming. Okay, so what does the universe want to say about the relationship? Getting to know each other. As you reveal your innermost selves to each other, your bond deepens. See, I'm just thinking of I think it's from The Sound of Music. The song it's not Julie Andrews, is it? I don't know. I think it is. Anyway, the song where she's like, getting to know you, getting to know all about you, learning to love you. And this might be, I could definitely see this connection being like a slow burn. Just kind of learning, like I want to see, okay, one thing I want to see is, I didn't do this for other groups, but like, what makes you choose this person? Like, if there's such hesitation here, like, what makes you choose them? The Lovers in reverse. Okay, what makes them choose you? The Moon in reverse with the World in reverse. This might be a situation where initially the two of you start dating because you don't want to be alone. Right? We've got all major arcana here, so there's a very significant feeling. This person makes you feel, and this might be a better way to put it, thank you. This person makes you feel not alone, right? And to this person, you show how much more they still have left to live in life, and they don't want to spend it alone. This could be a situation where it kind of starts off as convenience. I don't know a lot about arranged marriages. I don't know how common that is anymore, but it could be that this falls in line with that. The two of you could be older or just feeling really out of place. But this does, I think, become a relationship of teamwork. A relationship where as the two of you get to know each other more, it's very likely that the original reasons for being together are not as heavy of influencers. You could develop stronger feelings for each other over time. It's really interesting. There is just throughout this entire pile, just this feeling of uncertainty, like, I don't know about this. Maybe, maybe not. And I think the other person kind of feels the same, but as the two of you grow closer, like, you start to understand what makes each other tick. You start to have a stronger appreciation for each other. And like I said, this is just the initial choice, right? Like why you end up getting into a relationship with them in the first place. And it's very likely that there will be situations, if y'all are getting married, it's very likely that there are situations throughout the relationship that really strengthen your bond And then we have 0808. Swift action with wealth, empathy, promises, commitment, affection, inner strength, and auspicious outcomes. You will enter a time of expansion, so begin taking steps toward achieving your ultimate objective immediately. Finances will miraculously improve. Oh, and somebody has their mind set on you. Maybe finances play a role in this at first. So I was watching a TikTok of a woman, I think she was an American woman living in Germany. And one of her German friends got married. And she was like, oh, congratulations. You met the love of your life. And the German woman was like, the love of my life? What are you talking about? And the American woman was like, well, you found your soulmate, like the person you want to spend the rest of your life with because you're just so in love with them. And the German woman was like, love? She was like, honey, it's a tax benefit for us. And like, we can tolerate each other. And I don't know how common that is. But that's what this kind of makes me think of, where it's like, maybe at first it starts off for financial security, right? Or just like not wanting to be alone. But there's something about the both of you where you're like, yeah, okay, this person meets my criteria. And surprise, you may be surprised. So I will always encourage people, because I'll tell you what, like if I'm not vibing with somebody, I'm not going to pursue it, right? Like I would rather be single than settle. But everybody has their own different priorities. And I think what the universe is saying is like, this situation might turn out one way, but you're going to be surprised. Because you're going to find out like, yes, this person is lonely. Yes, this person is healing and they're just kind of trying to prevent themselves from being hurt. This person is really, really strong for the things that they've overcome, right? And how they are somebody who actually does have affection for you. So you might kind of go into this thinking like, well, at least I'm not going to be alone. Like, I don't know if there's really love there. I don't know if this is the right fit for me. But you're going to be surprised. You are. Because the situation is going to be more fulfilling than what you had originally anticipated. Okay? So I don't get readings like that a lot. I always want people to find situations that make them feel 100% in love, happy, passionate. But on the same token, like, I know we all have different priorities too, right? We're all in different situations. Or, there was one a video where it was like, I think it was a couple in India. And the woman was able to like look under her husband's like, I don't know what it is, but it's like a cloth that was covering his face because she didn't know who she was marrying. And she flipped it up and she saw who it was and she was like so happy. And the caption said that it was like her best friend. I don't know if that's true or not, but you might be in a position where you're just feeling really lethargic about love and really downtrodden and thinking like, I just have to settle. But I think you are going to end up being happy. It's going to be a situation where it feels like almost like a business proposal at first, maybe. Or just doing things because it's what's expected of you. But I think there are going to be some beautiful surprises in here. So group number three. I haven't done 4 piles in a long time. What am I talking about? If this reading resonated with you, please let me know how in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you would like to be part of the family and haven't done so, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you know whenever I upload a new video. If you're interested in a private reading, go ahead and find my email in the description box down below. Send me an email and I'll send you a list of my services. Bye.